Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's session. I hope you had a great day so far. My day again was actually pretty good because I just didn't have too many calls one of those days, and I always feel so productive when I don't have meetings. So yeah, a good day. So I take some time at the beginning always because it does take some time for many to join the meeting from our last webinars at least. But I'll start with the basics. I am Christian. You've maybe seen me before. I am basically the initiator of Project Scagile and also co-founder of Ecometer. So today you're seeing one of the Project Scagile webinars focusing on organizing around value. I really like this topic because all the webinars we did within Project Scagile we did based on interviews, and within those interviews, I think the second biggest challenges of all when we asked about scaling Agile was this thing: you have to align around value, all of your teams. Today's you will see in the webinar all in all 11 experts with their opinion on this topic. And I think, very interesting insights. What I have to add is that, this is an on-demand webinar. That means, it's impossible to get all of those experts together at one time, even if, because they are from different time zones. This means that, it's an automated webinar. But I think the advantage of this is that, that you get a lot of information in a short amount of time. So that's pretty good. So just today's session. What can you expect from today's session? We are especially talking about, firstly, why do you have to align around value? Why is this so important? Then we'll get a little bit deeper. For example, talking about value stream mapping. What is that? And what are the basics of this? Also, what are alternatives to this? Because I think many people don't even know that there are alternatives to this method. We're going a few steps further. What are the steps afterwards, after you maybe aligned around value? Great. So I think that was the most important stuff at the beginning. I always recommend to take out a pen now because, again, that's a lot of information in a short amount of time. And then you can write everything down that you like to write down. You can also do it digitally, obviously, if you want. I will do the offboarding at the end, so we'll see us at the end. Have fun.
The biggest challenges is most businesses are aligned around tools and or skills. And I think for any business to be successful, you need to align around your customer's value.
The group that wants to scale is not always organized around value. It's like a silo that says, I want to launch this initiative. But what they haven't done is they haven't really looked at that whole value stream map.
This old case study perfectly demonstrated it. Netflix completely disrupting and destroying the Blockbuster home video rental service through organizing around customer value.
Don't waste your resources. Only work when you add value.
When I first started this conversation with you, I talked a little bit about how I see businesses aligned around skill sets or tools, some sort of expertise internally rather than a customer externally. And by externally, I don't mean necessarily outside the company. You can have customers who are in your company, but they're not in your group. But you have to have that customer mindset. Think of them and see them as somebody that you're serving a value to. That's what the teams are doing. On the scaled level, you're asking a couple of teams to deliver something together that's bigger.
And we are in the middle of the session already. So many companies are organizing around a skill set instead of organizing around their customers' need. That is a key learning already. And maybe a metaphor will help you here. Imagine you're a scientist and developing this new medicine. You're really good at it, and you have this expertise to develop this really nice, amazing pill. And this pill is really impressive, but the thing is, you don't know what disease it's gonna cure. Because you started with your skill set, you're really good at building and developing this pill, but you don't know what's the problem of your customer, you don't understand the disease. And that's what you have to do. You always have to start with the pain of your customer, you always have to start with understanding the disease before you develop the product, the solution, or the pill in case of that metaphor. Philip talks about another symptom if you're aligning around the wrong things.
John Cutler, he mentions some things like being careful to avoid what he calls success theater. What he means by that is, in a lot of organizations, you see all this, attention and focus on, hey, we shipped something. Well, great. But did you actually talk about the impact of what you did, right? I mean, in a way, it kind of comes back to the old Project Management Institute, fixation on time, on budget. Well, okay, on time, on budget, what did it actually deliver what the customer wanted? If no, then, how significant is it that you were on time, on budget? I would say not very.
Maybe this sounds familiar, this success theater. So there are definitely many organizations that are focusing on the wrong things. And today's session is really focusing on helping you to align around the right things, which typically means aligning around your customers' needs, or in other words, aligning around creating this value for your customer. And this really comes down to the core purpose of your organization.
Yeah, what's important to the organization? What does the organization want delivered? What's our organizational goal? Let's sit down together and say, hey, what do we want to achieve as an organization?
What do we want to achieve? Now, typically, we want to fulfill our customers' need. That's the core purpose. It should be the core purpose of our organization to create this value for our customer. So the question is, how do we align the whole organization around a value creation?
So the customer value equal business value. So I will deliver whatever I can or I want my customer to have. If you are not adding anything, don't work. Don't waste your resources because you're not going to add the value. Only work when you add in value.
Again, it's not important that you are busy or on time and budget, but it's important that you fulfill your customer's need and create this value. And to do so, typically, you have to understand your so-called value streams.
One of the learnings that we had in our Center of Excellence as we progressed is that we realized that the value stream identification was an important part of the roadmap, right, for coaching. And it should be done up front. Because if you don't understand that value stream, how will you ever organize around it?
Okay, given that, where do we start now?
It begins with a shift in perspective. At the top of your hierarchical pyramid is no longer a project manager, but at the top of your hierarchical pyramid is now your product. Let that sink in for a minute or a second. The product itself will tell you what to do next. It will evaluate your performance, and it will decide what direction to go to next. But how do you learn the language of your products? This is a technical question now. You have to engineer for that. How do you get your KPIs, your data from your product or from your customers? That's nothing that you can just take from the product from the get-go. You have to really plan for that. Do we have the telemetry, for example, to feedback data to us? How many people are successfully using our product? How happy are they with that? Or technical KPIs.
Okay, so you need this shift in perspective. You need this shift of mindset, basically. And in Kevin's philosophy, the product, or in other words, the customer, is the new manager. It's dictating what to do next.
If you have this shift in mindset or shift in perspective, that you now are not reporting anymore to a project manager, but to the functionality of your overall product and to the performance of your product, And gaps in performance dictate what to do next, and gaps in features dictate what to do next, and gaps in quality dictate what to do next. Then the organization to achieve those goals will follow automatically. People will start to organize themselves to achieve those goals.
Kevin is also pretty open and pessimistic about the alternative to this, having classical project managers.
If you keep your project manager at the top of the pyramid, the cognitive boundaries or limitations of this person, as smart as he or she might be, with a complex product, nobody can understand or decide everything. You start developing components, you start creating project manager roles. You have all of a sudden you have one head project manager and five part project manager, so to say, and all of a sudden this will be your project your product architecture, and this leads to a lot of problems. So I can only recommend to lose this perspective of what is the reporting on this part of the project. Are we green? Are we yellow? Are we red? It's what is the status of the product right now? What is the performance?
When Kevin talks about the performance of the product here, he means performance of the product measured by how well it fulfills the need of the customer. Now, going one step back, the question is, how are many organizations organized instead?
So traditionally, prior to SAFe or prior to going Agile, people were pretty much focused on what they were doing, not knowing too much about the customer. And that goes through the entire chain. Like if I'm a Java developer and my customer is a business analyst, and business analyst customer is somebody in finance, and the finance person's customer is somebody in sales, and sales is customer is actually the real customer who is consuming the product. It has to happen in every chain, throughout the chain, at every level. So when I as a developer start asking this question, that what exactly this request is fulfilling, then the person who is feeding the work to me will be forced to ask this question from the next person in the chain.
Yes, that's how it was done before. You were organized around basically the need of the department you are working with instead of the need of your end customer, the end customer of your organization. And this mindset shift has a lot to do with your current culture.
That again goes like a culture in the organization. If I just ask and I don't get the answer, and my organization doesn't support this kind of asking the question, then it doesn't work. Right? So one of the things of change leadership is make sure that asking questions and curiosity is encouraged, and everybody should know the reason of why they are doing a work, so that they can see what value they are providing to the end customer. Unless everybody asks this question, people will not know what exactly is this customer's need or pain, and why we are doing all of this in between.
Everyone has to feel free to ask this question. Is that what I'm doing right now? Is that benefiting the need of our end customer? And being able to ask this has a lot to do with the cultural shift that's often going on. We have a whole free webinar on this topic of culture change. Feel free to check that out. So we don't want to be this traditional company. Instead, we want to organize around value. Every single team, every team member, every department knows exactly how is their work connected to the value to the end customer. And to do so, you have to understand your value streams again. Now, what are value streams not?
A lot of people, when they hear about value streams, they think, oh, developmental value streams, right? My developers do this, they do that. And it's like, no, what are you doing as an organization, right? Or when we go from projects to products, they're like, oh, business intelligence is a product. It's like, your customers are paying you for their data? No, they're not paying us for our data. Then is that really a product? Well, it's a product internally. Okay, then it's a part of the system. Where is it in a part of the system? And do we want to spend a lot of time there versus really what's going to get people in the door and more value creation for the organization and the company? So a lot of those questions come up all the time when you start talking about aligning around what a product really is and how do we maximize that value to our customer.
John said we want to move from projects to products, which is similar to saying we want to move from outputs to outcomes. That's the exact same reason why we don't want to focus on time and budget, as Philip was saying. Instead, we want to focus on delivering this value for our customer, which is not the project, but is the product. So we have to think in products rather than projects, and we do this by aligning our teams around value. Now the question is, what exactly is that, this value, and what are value streams?
And value is, very loosely defined. What one person could deem valuable, somebody else might not necessarily. So how do you get alignment on what is valuable to an organization? And if you look back into, kind of the heydays in the 1950s and 60s of manufacturing, there came a concept of value stream mapping. And this was done very much at the developmental level, right? What was the first phase in developing this widget? What was step 2, step 3, step 4, step 5, until the product itself was done? Now, if we take that from the manufacturing world into today's environment, we can apply those same value stream principles not only to the development stream, but to the entire organization. We can take a look at what is the concept, the reason that a business is in existence, and to the point where they're actually receiving money for the product that they're producing to their customer. And that's called an organizational value stream.
I think this is a great introduction. And I like understanding things through examples, so Steve is giving another example for this step-by-step stream, basically.
Often we forget about the flow of value. And so one of the things that's fun, that's a fun exercise, is to really start walking the executives through or leadership through all of the steps it takes to get the product. Whether that's someone walking up to an ATM machine, whether that's someone placing an order at a fast food restaurant, what is it that they need to do? They need to open the door, they need to walk into the restaurant, place the order. The order has to be cooked. We have to make sure that the inventory is there. It's got to be put on a tray and handed to the customer at where we get the money. And that's the really important thing. Most people forget about that.
Now, given that, what would be the end of our value stream then?
So the ideal way of doing it is that your value stream, the end of your value stream is actually the customer who is consuming your product or your services, right? So even product is not important because the essence of product is to serve the customer. So really the end point of your value stream is lying outside your company.
So a value stream is all the steps that are taken till your customer's need is fulfilled. And then also part of the value stream mapping is to segment your customers, because possibly then you will see that you will have, two different value streams.
So understanding that customer, who that customer is, grouping that customer in a particular way. To give you an example, for example, let's say you are selling your products, right? And there are two channels you are selling. One is B2C, your customers like, you and me buying the product. And then you may have institutional customers, right? We typically call it B2B. So the behavior of these two customers and expectation of these two customers will be very different. Okay, like if I am buying a product from Amazon, I would expect to see everything. I would expect to see the related products. I would expect to see very rich pictures and maybe customer reviews and this and that. The institutional buyer would have a different mindset. They will not care much about pictures and all these bells and whistles. This is what I want. I want quality product. I want at the cheapest price. I want delivery when I want it. Right. So they will come with a different mindset altogether. So now understanding these customers, grouping them, and then lining up everything which you need to do in order to deliver to this customer is basically your value stream.
Great. And John now summarizes how these different steps and value streams add up and help to reorganize the organization more effectively.
So when we identify our organizational value stream, we can therefore now pinpoint the different points in time where a customer is going through his or her journey, and then we can optimize those different points, right? Underneath those different points in that journey, there's going to be different systems that's supporting the customer. There's going to be different people working on those systems, and we can start to optimize the system as a whole rather than just one individual part of it, and where we're just sub-optimizing and not really getting a lot of value delivery to our customer. So having that organizational value stream is going to give us that vision, and then we can start to optimize the system as a whole.
Aligning around value and thinking in those value streams means that you are leaving this thinking in silos, basically. And that's one of the key benefits if you align around value. You are making sure that, some departments are not sub-optimizing something. And to get to know your value streams, there's this method called value stream mapping that we heard before. Steve is giving a specific example of how he is doing it.
And one of the things that I find fun is when you're doing a value stream mapping session, we often think we need everybody in the room at once. And that's certainly helpful if you can get everybody together. But if you can't, why not have the different groups, the different organizations do their own value stream mapping, how they see the world end to end, and then compare them. Because when you bring everybody together to compare them, they're all convinced they have it right, but none of them ever do. So suddenly you bring this fascinating realization to the fact that, they didn't really, some of their assumptions they had weren't what they believed they were. And now you have end to end, you have it all laid out and ready to go once they start combining those things. So you end up with the correct result, and you have a great learning opportunity there too.
So this is what it could look like. If you want to get into specifics on this value stream mapping exercise, we've linked more information within the Project Scagile webinar. And make sure to keep in mind that you can do this remotely or asynchronously. The question now is, who will attend this value stream mapping exercise?
I personally open it up to everybody. I open it up to everybody because everybody's opinion is valid. Everybody's opinion is important. If you sit just with leadership, they're not the ones with hands on deck. They're not the ones doing the actual work. So I open it up to anybody and everybody who's available initially. Yes, you're going to have chaos, and I love chaos. That's when you find out the truth. And then based on that chaos, you break it down further.
So yes, it may be a little chaotic, but it definitely has advantages to have all these different perspectives coming together. Zui is elaborating on this.
So if it's an organization that has 1,000 people, you always want to ask off the jump, what are your business deliverable streams? Or figure it out. How can I break people into chunks? And even if you have hundreds of people, that's why technology has improved. Not everybody has to pick up the mic and talk. You have so many tools that you can say, hey, type your opinions. And then the tool will do an aggregate of opinions by keywords. And then you segment it on the board. Then vote, just click yes, you don't have to type it again. So even if you have thousands of people, you can use the new tools to have to still get people to talk without creating give me the mic, or acrimony. So technology will help you solve that. The more people you get, the more inclusive you are, the more people have buy-in.
So opening it up to everybody can heavily increase trust and buy-in from the employees. And maybe you've seen our webinar on Agile culture. Increasing this trust is key within this cultural transformation that is going on. Now, let us zoom out a little and get some more views on this topic of value streams.
When you know what's the customer needs will identify your values.
We heard that before, but it is simply very important. Aligning around value means aligning around your customers' needs. And that is simply the most powerful thing you can do to ensure the long-term success of your organization. That's also the reason why our Agile metrics formula equals into value creation. Find more on that in our webinar on Agile metrics. Now the question is, what is a good indication for your customers' needs?
Oh, we need to make money here, we need to make money there, we need to make money here. All right, let's put money aside. Money is important. Those three places we need to make money now becomes our value streams. Okay, how do we make money in this particular value stream? We need to improve this, and then we need to work this way. Those now become the tenets of our value streams. And then we keep mapping it down gradually to individual teams. What teams affect this part of the business?
So one indication for your customers' needs is where you earn the money. And Philip is hitting on the fact that you can need this philosophy to increase your revenue.
We focus on, what are the specific customer behaviors that drive business results? Let's figure out those things. Okay, we figured that out. Great. Now, how do we get customers to do more of those things? And then lastly, how do we know that we're actually right? So that again comes back to the, what are the meaningful measures that we can put into place?
Once you know those key things that you are doing that are generating the revenue, you can duplicate them. Now, we heard this value stream mapping exercise a few times before. Philip is hitting on another method that you can use to better understand value creation.
There absolutely has to be clarity on what value is to our customer or customers. We must have absolute clarity on that across all the teams, across all the people working on it. We need to understand what that is, which includes, once again, acknowledging, customer pain points, acknowledging, some people use the term jobs to be done, saying, okay, what are the things that those customers really care about?
So understanding the pain point of your customers is key. And when I say that, I mean that every single one of your employees is knowing the key pain points of your customers. Also, this jobs to be done methodology is interesting if you are trying to understand the value you are creating. Using those will heavily help your teams in the end to work on the right things. Maureen is also describing that it doesn't always have to be value stream mapping.
There's a couple different toolkits out there, right? One was that safe value stream identification. I mean, there's a lot of information out there about value stream mapping. You could also take a DevOps approach, right? So if you're dealing more with a technical team and they're like, well, we don't want all that scaled agile framework stuff. I've taken a class before where the creator of the DevOps content for scaled agile said, hey, look, a lot of times we'll start with this class, and what you end up doing is having that conversation like, well, how do we get better? How do we organize around this development value stream? And then making sure that you do have the business, because that's a great class, right? So it's not just DevOps. I call it biz DevOps, where they bring the business in as well, so that you can complete the circle for that lean startup.
So feel free to have a look at the DevOps approach. Another methodology, an alternative to the value stream mapping, is introduced by Eric.
I'm going to give you a different perspective, because I know a lot of people, when they talk about this here, they talk about value stream mapping, looking at going through the business model canvas. They would talk about, what's the concept of cash? What are all the steps that deliver value from our development and operational value stream? They're going to talk about things like that. One of the things I'm going to talk about value creation is a little different. I work with a lot of legacy companies. I'm a huge fan of what's called journey mapping. This is going through the customer journey, finding the pain points, find their emotional state, sourcing ideas from those pain points, and then aligning them to our future journey map.
So even more food for thought for you. An alternative is this so-called journey stream mapping. Eric is going deeper on when this method is especially relevant.
And the reason why is that I get a lot of customers that have existing products that have been around for 20, 30, 50 years, right? And what they do is that they go like, okay, we're going to be a product now. So we built this product with projects for the last 50 years. And now we're going to call it a product, and we're just going to add stuff on top of this. So we're going to make this now so that this mainframe legacy slow thing now is a little faster because we put a front end on it. When really we should be looking at, well, wait a minute, what are the pain points we want to address? How we're going to be empathetic and match to the emotions of the people, the users, the customers that are utilizing our solution. And let's actually do what's called a zero-based design. Let's go with where we want to be and then work backwards.
So especially if you are viewing the needs of your customers through the same lens since decades, this journey stream mapping and zero-based design could be highly relevant. They will help you to broaden your view on how you could also solve the need of your customer. The Netflix versus Blockbuster case study is a perfect example that shows you why this zero-based design exercise could be really, really helpful. I talked about it in the Agile Metrics webinar. So to very quickly summarize it for you, Netflix started a lot later than Blockbuster, but still they were able to align around their customers. So they started with a DVD rental service, and then went to a subscription model, and then went to an IT company basically, always rethinking, okay, what is the best way that we can serve to our customer? How can we align around customer value? And as you can see in this nice graphic here, by doing that, they were able to again and again jump the curve and beat their competition. I guess that's what most organizations want. As you can see, what Netflix probably did regularly is a zero-based design. If we wouldn't have this DVD rental service, if we would have nothing, how would we serve our customer? Well, we'll probably do it online. Okay, maybe we have to pivot. Eric is giving another example.
I work with marketing teams, and this is an example I think you might like here. So I have a marketing team that they want to go digital. They have this customer relationship management system that they want to go digital. They put a lot of effort, a lot of money into it. They want to be able to track, their contacts, what emails they send out, who they contacted, who's the what's the pain points for the company that they're connecting with, who was the last person to contact them. And we originally went through the design, and they wanted to just go, you know what, we need to put everything into Salesforce. That's the solution. Put everything into Salesforce, all the data, all the information. That's going to solve our issues. Well, I went through the journey map with them, and what they found out is that the pain point was connecting with external partners and communicating the services they provide. So what happened was that it wasn't actually them collecting the data, managing the work. It was actually that, how do we find external partners? How do external partners communicate to us? How do they intake into us? And how do those partners know about us as marketing? How do we market about marketing? And what are the goals for that? And that actually made them realize that we shouldn't be investing into a CRM system, that we should actually be investing in educating our partners and putting information about what we do as an organization. I'm a big fan of using journey maps, going through customer journeys as a way to look at value creation of where is the highest value, and then focusing on building MVPs out of that.
So firstly, understanding the key needs and pains, and then restarting with an MVP regularly. That is how you make sure that you don't fall into the trap that Blockbuster fell into. Eric is again explaining when this is especially relevant.
I know a lot of people are going to say, find your development value stream, find where your organizational operational value stream is, and then just go with that. But for me, I like this here because it takes us away from that. We've had this product here for so long, and really, let's get away from that, because what happens, people have buy-in to products for years and years and years. They get sold to it. They're like, well, the solution is right here. We already have it. We just need to add on top of it. So I like getting people away from that, have them start thinking about, well, maybe that's not the best solution. Let's find out what that is. Let's do some discovery and incubation, and let's source those ideas.
This zero-based design and journey stream mapping heavily help to avoid thinking in old patterns. Interestingly, when we interviewed Kevin from Germany, he also recommended to do this MVP and thinking in small steps approach.
So you have to break down your product into increments. You have to say, this is a very, very first rough prototype of our product. What can it do? In the beginning, it might be only binary KPIs, so to say. Something is there or is not there. Data can be transferred from A to B, or I don't know, depending on your product, of course. But once you have that, and it shouldn't take longer than 2 months, once you have this rough frame working, you start working on the performance of that. You add stuff to make it better, to reach more customers, or to save resources, or to be faster, more precise, whatever.
Okay, also to summarize and to view this from a more abstract perspective, what is the key skill when we talk about that you want to align around value?
The core skill there is business analysis, I think. And business analysis can mean a lot of things. There's a lot of business analysts. But really for me, it's a business analyst is able to look at what's going on and just figure out what the value is here. I would start with understanding my customers. Everything I do, that's what I try to do. And all the really successful businesses have done that. It's an old example because I'm old, but Steve Ballmer took over Microsoft. He went on a tour. He went on a listening tour. He went and sat with all these businesses, and he top 100 customers of Microsoft and found out what they wanted. That before he even started day one in the office, he went and toured around.
This core skill here is business analysis. Greg is giving a nice example that will help you to understand what this business analysis may look like.
We built a workforce management solution years ago, and that meant that I was traveling all over the country and a lot of phone calls too, this was not as much Zoom and WebEx back then, but I would have to meet with, chief nursing officers, staffing offices, all of the people who work in a hospital and understand what it was they were doing, how they were figuring out how to manage the nurse workforce. And that means you're talking to a whole lot of different people. They've all got opinions, they've all got experiences. And every single one of those hospitals I went to, every single one of those nursing directors I talked to, good, bad, whatever, they all told me, oh, we're so different. And it's true on some level. Everybody is unique. Everybody is different. Everybody has their own flavor. And the reason is because they've had to find a way to make their situation with their people, their place work. But ultimately, as a business analyst, you get enough repetitions of looking at these things that you see the similarities.
So this is what it could look like if you want to understand your customer, if you want to be customer-centric. And yes, this may be a lot of work. Greg is pursuing with this example.
If you get into these places, you'll see that they're all struggling with the same issues, and they've just found ways to work around it because of their place, their people, etc. So yeah, that's what customer value is there's layers of talking to people and having to listen to their daily struggle, how they do things, whatever. And then there's the root thing that you have to find that they're trying to do. What are they trying to do? Well, they're trying to figure out whether it's cheaper to call in a contract nurse for a shift or to pay overtime to a nurse that they have to stay on the shift. And, that's something that was kind of universal. And that's just one example, but there's lots of those little things that you have to figure out. And that's just sifting through. You have to like people enough to be able to talk to them and figure out what the layers of struggle that they're dealing with before you get to that root issue and that they share with somebody else.
Now, what Greg added is that the skill of business analysis is actually important to every single role of your organization, especially, if you want to align everyone around value creation.
I found that it helps to even introduce business analysis techniques all the way down to the delivery team level, or we're calling them Agile teams now. But Agile teams, each person on that team should have that skill, because they're going to go to a product owner meeting and he's going to say, hey, give me this initiative, feature, whatever, epic, whatever you want to call it. And they're going to have to decompose that thing into the pieces that deliver it. They're going to have to ask him questions and understand exactly what it is he wants, which means they're trying to dive in and find out where the value is for him, what the easy things are that they can do. They're going to decide what the things that are more difficult that they may have to do a workaround, and they're going to have to get agreement from that product owner. So everybody on that team, and then product owner, if he's doing his job, is doing the same thing. He's out there talking to the customers.
And this everyone should think like business, that is something that, at least according to Vivek, is the Scaled Agile framework really good at emphasizing.
One thing which SAFe does really well is that sensitizing everyone that everyone needs to think like business, right? There's no real separation between IT and business. So if I'm a developer, I need to know what exactly I am developing, how it is helping my customer. So for facilitating that, they basically have all these concepts that, okay, when you do your PI planning, bring in somebody from business who understands what is the real objective behind this initiative, share that with rest of the team. And, when you do your demo, again, ask this question, how exactly going to help my customer?
So feel free to have a look at the Scaled Agile framework and to also generally to train everyone on this. Getting back to Greg, he emphasized that when you're doing this analysis, obviously not everything that you will learn is new to you.
80% of what you do when you do that is just validating things that you already know. But that other 20% in there, there's some magic in there that you're going to find, and there's some inspiration to deliver something.
Now, and once Greg has all the data from his customers, he analyzes it with some distance.
The great thing about what I do is I get in there, I spend a day, maybe a week, sometimes maybe 2 weeks with these people. But then I walk away, I put it down, I fly home, whatever. And then I've got all this data and I look through it. And that experience of gathering that data, that's where I have that empty. I have to recognize what they're doing. But ultimately, when I walk away from it, I can look at it and just kind of practically from some distance say, oh, okay, here's what they're trying to do. Here's how they're doing it. How can we help them?
To bring this story to an end, The last step of this business analysis is to break down all this information into user stories.
In just our practical Agile terms, that's translating all of that into some user stories or some features or epics that you can then put in front of an Agile team and have them ask you lots of questions. And you may end up revising it or having to go back and find something else out. Because, that Agile team is sitting there hammering out code, or, some cases they're creating marketing materials. And they're not in front of the customer. They maybe, if you're lucky, they'll get to go to a conference once a year and meet them. I always try to do that, which is great. That's what the analysis that I'm talking about is you're taking that experience, that user that you're creating those personas so you can present them to the Agile team. You can go, this is this chief nursing officer. Her name's Susie. Here's what she does. Here's what she hates. Here's her grandson telling her how to use her phone. Once somebody understands that person and they've seen that situation, then you're giving them that user story that they can go and then deliver something and hopefully put it in the hands of that person to test and then say, yeah, this is it. Or maybe you could do this too.
Now we went very deep on this topic of understanding your customer. When I asked Sean about this, he introduced another key thing that will help you to align all your employees around value creation.
Once you have that value stream mapping workshop, a lot of eyes open. Because again, you start from idea and you map everything, every step you have to map out, and you have to do a lead time and actual work time. How much, when somebody gets something in front of them, how long does it take them to accomplish that task? But the interesting thing is the lead time. How long before that person actually gets it do they, work on it? And then you can start seeing where you're spending the most time. And you look at these things and you're like, can we automate some of this? Do we need another resource? How can we reduce this lead time so that it is flowing smoothly through?
So what Sean is introducing here is Agile metrics, Agile KPIs, giving lead time as an example. Rethinking your KPIs at the beginning of this mindset shift, that is really important. And you should do this really rather sooner than later.
You can't really know any of this without agreeing on what kind of measurements you want to have. So you certainly need to talk about those things.
Sean and Maureen are both hitting again on the fact that this will help you align the whole organization.
All these companies have silos: security, engineering, QA, QE, implementation. So you're breaking that down and you're showing, hey, if we can just make this smooth instead of a waterfall methodology, we can get value through quick. You're going to improve the speed of delivery, and you're going to improve how much money you're making, because now if you've removed those roadblocks, if you've reduced the time to market, you're getting dollars in quicker or whatever currency.
Even if you wanted to start more technically, that's a really great way to approach it, right? Just to map out your current development value stream and start getting your lead time and cycle time, process time, right? And start figuring out your efficiency ratio there. Because it really gives, the development group a backlog of things that they need to work on. And then it also kind of enlightens business to say, wow, our batch sizes are really big, right? And it's taking a long time to flow through this system. Is there a way that we can sort of reduce the batch size on the front end to get value out faster?
Agile metrics in general is a very big topic, and that's the reason why we have a whole free webinar on it. If you want to learn how you can give your transformation a clearer direction, feel free to check that out. Heavily important for this topic of metrics is the leadership team.
The first set of people that you're going to talk to will be leadership. What's your business goal? What's your business value? What would we do that will provide value to you and your goals for the year? Oh, we want this. Okay, you take that as a toolkit, you keep it somewhere. And then go to as this value is being communicated to other teams. Yes, no, maybe. By talking to other teams, you find out if it has. And then you say, hey, these are the values important to your organization. Oh, but they didn't tell us that at the beginning of the year. Now you know. How do you pivot and focus on that?
This last step here is very important. Identifying your value streams through whatever method you may use is not enough. You also have to communicate them to your teams and align them around this. KPIs can help you with that, but in the best case, those value streams are not new to your teams because they have been part of the analysis you conducted to find them. Now again, you should communicate this to your teams rather sooner than later.
A lot of people wanted to kind of go fast and launch trains where they could, and where they actually had influence. And that's great too. But I think after a certain time, you're going to have to relook at this and say, okay, look, what's the big picture, right? What are we trying to deliver? Is there a better way to reorganize? So I would say trying to do that sooner rather than later, and then also continue knowing that you may have to do it again.
Did you hear this last point? Know that you have to do this business analysis and understanding your customer and aligning around his needs constantly, regularly, maybe even once a year.
So when maybe your first year you do that, by the second year, the organization would already be prepared. Oh, last year, this was our KPIs, our goals, these are value streams. Going to next year, what do you think our value streams should be? Send out a survey or tell people, hey, write a quick note, go vote somewhere here. Once that's done, then you're good to go.
Now, practically, once you did all this and you are aligned around value, maybe you are also repeating those workshops, you have to remind everyone on this constantly.
We absolutely must find a way to check in with customers on some kind of a consistent cadence. And I don't mean just a casual, oh, we delivered this, I hope it worked out okay. I mean, it has to be a little deeper than that in terms of, all right, great. Now we just updated this product, we released this new product. You really need to have some things in place that tell you specific, outcomes from this in terms of did it achieve what we wanted to.
Greg also had a very strong opinion on this. And he proposed the following ceremony, we've heard it before, that can help you with this.
What really helps to do this right is that system demo. If you do a system demo every sprint, you're in great shape. We usually start off doing them once a month when we're starting people into Scale, just because the concept is a little overwhelming. You want them to go away and have some time to absorb it. And then the next time they come back, they're a little bit more. And then once they get the skill to be able to participate in the system demo where you're showing that integration, that's horizontal integration, then they'll start getting it. Then you can start doing it every sprint and it just goes methodical and some of the drama's gone out of it and it becomes very useful.
To remind people constantly on this value stream thinking, this system demo can be a great ceremony where you show your product regularly to your customer. Now, in the end, I wanted to hit on one last topic. Those frameworks and methods we talked about, they are there to help you solve a problem. But you shouldn't take them too seriously. Vivek, for example, is giving a nice little story where you can see that the scaled agile framework sometimes is nice in theory, but not in practice.
So you have one product in a traditional IT sense, but now it's catering into two different value streams, right? Now, how do you divide? So your traditional definition of value stream says you basically try to keep it independent as much as possible. You are not going to put two different ERPs for two different value streams. That's not happening, right? So now you can organize your team. One way is you can organize your teams according to this value stream. You can have two different teams within ERP. But challenge is people don't even want to do that because resources are scarce. If you have a resource which can be used in both the value streams, you would try to consolidate. That's the traditional thinking of most of the companies, that we don't want to split resources way too much. Safe Agile says keep it very different, very separate, right? Which is not possible in every product. Similarly, you may have a enterprise data warehouse, which is again one big product, one giant team, and that might be taking care of your entire organization. So it's very difficult to split that by value stream. So that's where you have to look at what are the applications which your company is using and how it fits into servicing these different customers, and what are the ways of organizing which suits the need of your organization, which would be probably like optimally using the resources and also cater to the need of the end customers.
Okay, that felt important to me to make sure. We have a lot more on this topic on how you should view the frameworks in our free webinar on starting to scale Agile. Feel free to check that out. At last, I wanted to zoom out even more because aligning around value, that is just one challenge. Greg is hitting on the fact that there's a lot more to a successful Agile transformation.
Really, when you're trying to go scaled, you're talking about breaking down your business, recreating it in a new way, and understanding who all your customers are. So step one, understand the customers, align your business to that and do it. In practical terms, I think it goes back to that original question where you have to have some sort of leadership change, a culture change that happens if you're going to be ultimately successful. And I think that scares a lot of businesses, a lot of leaders. They got to where they are climbing up the ladders of the structure that you're telling them that they got to tear down.
All right, so we have a whole free webinar again on this topic of transforming culture. Feel free to have a look at that. To summarize the key points of this webinar. Firstly, take the time to understand your customer. Use the different methods we talked about, and this whole procedure is a huge mindset shift. Be aware of that. In the second step, this will help you to now align around your customer's needs, to align around value. It will also help you to align the leadership team on this new thinking, this new mindset of, okay, we have to align around value. In the third step, you have to make sure that your teams are aligned around value. This is obviously a long process. And then last step, do the system demo regularly and set the red KPIs, because this will help you long-term to remind people on this constantly.
It's interesting, right? Because everybody wants to change their culture. Oh, we're going to have this culture change. And just because leadership wants to change the culture doesn't mean culture is going to change.
For me, as organizational psychologist, what can I say? Culture does eat strategy for breakfast.
More than tools and methodology, it's essentially a mindset change.
Humans just resist change, and that's the biggest challenge.
Getting people to accept change.
Changing our behaviors, changing our beliefs is really difficult.
The cultural shift, that is often the most challenging, and that's where we need to spend the most time.
Yes, that was it. I really hope that you liked it and you got some inspirational thoughts, some food for thought. What would be helpful for us is if you could quickly give us a feedback on the right side of your screen. You should be able to see a little survey, just one click, how much you would recommend this, so that we can, iterate basically on this webinar also. Great. Just so you know, so we'll definitely repeat these webinars sooner or later. So if you liked it, feel free to also let your colleagues know about Project Scagile. And yeah, so one other thing, so the disadvantages of these these on-demand webinars is that it's hard to share experiences, and especially between the attendees. So what we did to work on that is that we actually developed two things. Firstly, you can do a little Agile maturity assessment after this webinar, which means that you are filling out a little survey, and then you can see it here right now. You get a little benchmark on where are you on in different categories compared to all the others that filled out this Agile maturity assessment. So you have a little indication on your maturity level, and afterwards you can also say, okay, I would like to be connected to others who have a similar maturity level, and then we'll just connect you via email. This is independent of us. You can just talk to each other and share your experiences and share how you are approaching the different challenges within your transformation. So feel free to go for this assessment. Again, I really hope that you liked it. If you have any more feedback, feel free to write me. We are always happy to hear anything from you. I think, this is enough now. Have a great day. Thanks a lot. Hopefully see you in one of the other webinars. Till then, bye.